and I give the call to the member for Fisher.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And can I thank the member for Blair to start off with for his generous comments. I don't doubt the member for Blair's intent or his genuine concern in relation to this issue, and he has been the chair of the Foreign Affairs, Defence and Trade Committee since the government came in, and I've spent a lot of time with him over the years. But on this point, I will disagree with him respectfully. Now, Madam Deputy Speaker, over the last 5 years, I've had the privilege of serving this parliament as either the chair or the deputy chair of the Defence Subcommittee for the Foreign Affairs, Defence and Trade Committee, with the exception of when I was the glory days when I was the Speaker. And in those times, Madam Deputy Speaker, the government of the day, when we were in government, we brought a number of we sought to bring a number of changes to the subcommittee, whether it was under the late Senator Jim Molan or under the current shadow Defence Minister or other members of the committee. The opposition, when we were in government, we saw that the existing Defence Subcommittee was not working as it should. And the member for Paterson would know that because she was my deputy chair for some time when I was the chair. I wish I had $1 for every time a member of the Defence Force, a senior member of the Defence Force or Defence itself said, "Sorry, Mr Wallace, we can't answer that question. We're not in the appropriate room and you don't have the appropriate clearances." Now, how we could have civilian parliamentary oversight over our Defence Force and the Department of Defence in those circumstances is beyond me. It is absolutely beyond me. The Defence Subcommittee in its current make-up is fundamentally flawed. It is broken. And when we enter into what I think most people in this chamber and I think most Australians would recognise is the most dangerous geopolitical period since 1945, it is utterly inadequate to be in a situation where civilian oversight, civilian parliamentary oversight of our defence forces is inadequate. We are on a ship and we are heading towards the rocks. And that's why, in a recent inquiry, both Labor members and Coalition members agreed that it was a recommendation in the War Powers Inquiry report that this committee be established. Now, I want to congratulate the government on picking up that recommendation. It's a sensible recommendation. And I support it wholeheartedly. We must have greater parliamentary civilian oversight of our defence forces and the Department of Defence. That is a no-brainer. With the advent of AUKUS and the amount of money that this country is going to be spending in the defence of this nation, we have to have appropriate civilian oversight. So I'm on board with the bill, but, and it comes with a but, and this is not a matter of partisan politics. The government want to enable non-parties or people of non-parties of government, namely the crossbench and the Greens, to be able to serve on this committee. And that troubles me deeply. It troubles me deeply just as it troubled me deeply when the government introduced a similar amendment to the Parliamentary Joint Committee on Intelligence and Security, of which I am the Deputy Chair. Now, I agree with the member for Blair in this regard, that these sorts of committees who hear classified information at a top secret level for both PJCIS and, if this committee ever gets up, the Parliamentary Joint Committee on Defence, it is vital that they are able to hear evidence to a top secret level, that we are able to question senior members of Defence, the Defence Department and ADF members. We can't be just blown off, as has happened to me so many times in this place. But the importance of this committee, in my view, has to be constrained to members in this House who are members of parties of government. You see, when you pull apart the provisions of the Intelligence Services Act in relation to the PJCIS, the establishment of the PJCIS and who sits on it, the PJCD, this new Defence Committee, these provisions mirror that of the PJCIS. So how do you get to be on this committee? Well, effectively you are hand-picked by the Prime Minister of the day, in consultation with the Leader of the Opposition. So it's very clear, and I think there's some more work to be done on all of this, but to serve on this committee, you actually don't need a security classification. You don't need to be vetted by our security agencies in the same way that the Minister of Defence or any other Minister of the Crown is not vetted. This is a flaw in our existing system. Because there is no vetting, we rely upon the Prime Minister of the day and his judgment, and that of the opposition leader and his or her judgment, to confer and say, well, who's an appropriate person to be on this committee? Who do we know that will receive classified information at a top secret level and is not going to walk out of here and leak it to the media, or worse, leak it to foreign foes, or worse, use it as political leverage? Now, there are provisions in the Intelligence Services Act and the Defence Act that would provide for serious terms of imprisonment for anyone who broke those laws. But what really, really concerns me is that the government is going to use the opportunity to appoint the crossbench, to appoint Greens, to appoint independents in the event of perhaps a hung parliament at the next election. That really worries me. You support me, you give me your number, you guarantee supply, and I'll give you a job on the PJCIS or the PJCD. No, could never happen, member for Paterson. Could never happen. Well, you know what? It is exactly the reason why this government is allowing for the appointment of crossbenchers to this committee. There is no justification. The Greens will never form government in their own right. They'll only do that with the Labor Party. Independents will never form government in their own right. It is only the members of parties of government who should sit on this vitally important committee that will oversee the AUKUS arrangement, the largest defence procurement project ever undertaken by this government, at a time of the most geopolitical instability, the greatest instability since 1945, a time when government and opposition of either flavour need to work together to defend this nation. And without that ability to be able to— the PJCIS that I've served on as the Deputy Chair has never leaked in its 30-odd years of being in existence. Not once. No member has leaked because they know that if they leaked, guess what? They go to jail. If they go to jail, that destroys their political career. You know what? I can't say the same about the Greens. The Greens, it is their political manifesto that they want to abolish the ANZUS Treaty. They want to do crazy things like remove joint military bases with the United States. That means no more rotational Marine Force in Darwin. It means no rotational submarine forces in the West with either the UK or the United States. It means no more Pine Gap. It means no more North West Cape. If you look at the importance of these military bases, not just to the United States, but the defence of this country, the importance of these arrangements have been in place for decades across as a bipartisan arrangement. That has secured the defence of this nation for decades. And the government's willingness to water down the Parliamentary Joint Committee on Defence is of great concern. It will impact upon our very alliances with the United States and the United Kingdom at a time when we are at our most dangerous, at a time when we need to gather together our friends and allies. The government, through this bill, through wanting to allow crossbenchers to sit on this committee, fundamentally weakens our position and makes us vulnerable. The bill itself is common sense. It is a good development. It should be encouraged. I want to encourage those members opposite in the government. When the member for Canning, the Shadow Defence Minister, moves his motion to restrict members of the committee, of the Defence Committee, to just parties of government, I want to encourage those members opposite to accept that they got it wrong. Accept that national security should not be politicised. Accept that the defence of this country is so important that it should not be traded as a political bargaining tool with the Greens to garner support for a minority Labor government, because that's what this is all about. That's what this is all about. The willingness of the government to water this bill down, to water the Defence Committee down by including the crossbench, will do nothing other than make this country more vulnerable, subject to risk than what it already is. Our foes, and yes, we have foes, are watching this very, very closely. We cannot weaken on this point. I want to encourage those opposite to rethink their position on this. It's a common-sense approach. Don't weaken it for the sake of political expediency.